So how will, I'm just thinking practicalities, because obviously the two clubs boat from different boat houses for the race in the Thames, but are there enough changing rooms to have the sort of...
No.
So we're going to put in infrastructure. We're going to put
infrastructure.
We're going to be based out.
Drones, Martin, in the boat house. And
then we're going to put them in an outhouse. You're going to be out on the side somewhere, Seb, out there, over there.
They've got this lovely balcony and stuff that they can look down on Oxford as they're sort of basically cross-legged in the bushes on the side. So
the guy's going to change in the van before they get to the boathouse. Then
exactly,
yeah, down the road. We'll make them walk the last bit.
No, I think that
as the boat race company, we wear our neutral hats. So I think particularly it's difficult, isn't it, with COVID? So we need to make sure we've got enough space for everybody. So there isn't enough space inside the building, but we'll be making sure that Oxford are really well catered for in an appropriate marquee space, and they have what they need. And we'll be working with the coaches to ensure they have that, so their preparation is, as they would like it, as near as. And so that means that everyone can be there together. So that makes it much easier to cover, which is different to London, and when they're based in all the different boat houses.
Got it.
Yeah. We're going to paint one of their bay doors, though, Martin. We're going to, a bit like the Harvard Yale. The lads will be out with the paintbrushes the night before. So.
I like that. I wonder for the men's and the women's crews. I mean, I know they've been, training and racing internally, but there's no sort of suggestion. Normally, you get things like the force head to say who's quicker than who's a shade sort of the favourite. Is there any sense this year in the men's and women's races of who's the quicker crew or not?
I don't think there is yet. I mean, because we haven't had the opportunity of Falls Head. There hasn't been any racing. We've done our internal race, the trial-8s. I don't think we've sat down and compared times. And actually, it probably was quite helpful that the weather conditions were very different between the Cambridge trial-8s day and Oxford's. So maybe that's going to add to the element of, the unknown actually in the build-up to the race. I think, looking ahead, are there going to be fixtures that are coming? We might plan for them, but they may go by the wayside. So it could be even more exciting that we're going to have 4 crews out there who really don't know very much about each other, and what that brings. That is some of the really interesting things and the difficult things actually about competing in the boat races. You don't know that much about your opposition. Often it's comparative, but you really don't know how quick they are. So you really have to just do your own thing and train to be as good as you can be on that day. And is it good enough, and respond to whatever's going on when you see it. So I think that's sort of some of the pressure of it. Really is you don't really know what the opposition's really like.
Yeah, and I guess, Seb, I mean, you'll know from Sean Bowden, and he has this idea of, I guess, a boxing match, so the rounds of the boxing match delineated by, the various points on the famous points on the tideway course, Barn Elms, the end of the Fulham Wall, Crabtree, Harrods, and so on. But I mean, I guess there's nowhere other than fence posts and beds of reeds. So, I mean, what challenges does that introduce for the crews and the coxes?
No.
Did you get that, Seb?
Is he frozen?
I don't know. You can take that, Siobhan, if Seb's...
Okay. Yeah, so I think it is. We have got little post markers along the course every 250, so we'll be putting in more of those that are a bit more obvious, and we'll try and make sure that they're in the right places for Oxford when they come up for the practice weekends. So there'll be some features that might be artificial along the course to give markers, so that then there's a sense of being able to build up through the race and actually mark out and plan, or negotiate what you're going to do. That does make it slightly more challenging. But of course, you have to remember that Sean was coaching at Cambridge for a couple of years, so he does know the lay of the land pretty well. Oh, Seb's back.
Oh,
brilliant.
Yeah. Seb, we're just talking about coxes on this course at Ely. They've got no landmarks to go.
Yeah, so we will put some markers in because I think for the spectators too, we'll want to to have some reference of how far down the course we are. So we're going to do something to break it up a little bit. But I think it's going to be, that's going to be one of the sort of tough challenges of coxing the course and getting the tactics right, because I think, especially probably even more so for the Oxford guys, whether they work off times, I would presume, more than maybe distances, they're certainly not going to know the water particularly well, and it's not going to be easy for the athlete. I think in London, one of the things is, we do spend a lot of time preparing over the course, and there's a lot of work that goes into, knowing the markers of the athletes. Even if the cox box went, which isn't ideal in the boat race because it's a very tactical race, the rowers still have a really good idea. I think most rowers who row on the tideway course, they know where they are. It's famous, but I think that's going to be one of the big challenges of racing here is working out the tactics when you don't really know where you are, apart from the one tree that they have.
Yeah.
Oh, there is
a couple of buildings. A couple of buildings. Yeah.
What about I think we've looked at the race now, just to look at maybe some broader issues around the boat race, which I know you'll be very concerned with. What's the future for the boat race without a marquee sponsor? Was one of the questions that Adam Pearson, he's an Oxford rower, he came up with.
Shall I go for that one?
Yeah, go on.
Look, I think it's it's very challenging times. The boat race is pretty unique in that I think it's the second largest. If we talk about the London race, it's the second largest annual event in London. So there's only the marathon that's bigger, but it's totally unique in that there's no participants and there's no tickets at all. So the whole thing is unticketed and free to turn up, and so the only income that the race has been really partnerships and sponsorship, and sports sponsorship, especially in Europe, but particularly in the UK, has changed significantly over the past 20 years, and especially since the financial crisis, to be honest, much more so than the US. And big events that we all know well, like the Six Nations, things like the sponsorship deals there have changed quite materially too. And so it is a challenge, and especially too when large events, due health and safety and various other things, costs actually normally only go one way. They kind of go up. So I think it is a big challenge for us. Not to say that there is an interest in the race. There's a couple of irons in the fire at the moment, but also too, COVID is not making that easy to convert as well. For a sponsor, the challenge of a race that may not happen is a really tough one too. So I think the race has a really good future. We're probably gonna have to do some things differently, but I think there's also I think we're also pretty unique in London in that if you think of Henley Royal Regatta, Henley owns all the land, a lot of the land that they're fortunate to, and we're all fortunate to go and use and enjoy during the regatta. But we don't have any infrastructure at all really in London, and so we have to have a lot of partners. We have to use a lot of different areas on that long course as well, and so it just becomes an extremely expensive race. So I think it's going to have to rationalize a little bit, but also to probably change a little bit. I think too, not the core elements of it, but certainly the way that we run it financially. I think, is that fair, Siobhan?
Yeah, it is. I mean, and it still stands as a really great opportunity for a sponsor to become involved with, and we're still seeing that. It's just difficult times.
Yeah. So I guess the message is that the race is still viable even without a marquee sponsor.
It is, yeah. No, I think it certainly is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's been reasonable planning in the past, but I think there's a lot of we've seen a lot of at the moment, a lot of businesses and a lot of events.
He's gone again.
Is he frozen again? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think the sector has changed quite a lot. So I fill in. So the sector's changed quite a lot, but actually there's still a great opportunity there for people to be involved, and we're just looking to do things differently. And that's, you could say that's one of the silver linings that's come out of the disappointment of cancelling this year's one, is that it's given us an opportunity, as I said before, to have an operational pause, to look at where we are, what we're doing, how we look at the next 3 and 5 years, what we can do to change and adapt, as everybody's having to do right now. We have been benefited from incredible support in the past, and our BNY Newton partnership is just coming to an end, and they have been fantastic partners, and they've changed the race, they've changed opportunity, they've impacted on an event in a really positive way. That has been a real leadership point there, really, in sport, and we're looking for the next one to lead us through and to take that helm. Actually, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah. So you're quite excited about that. I think we got Seb back again now.
Sorry about that, Martin.
That's all right. You're doing well. Keep signing in. Yeah. Go on then, Seb. We were talking about the opportunities there, and I think we've we've covered that in one way. What's your views of the standard of the crews in terms of the level of expertise of both Oxford and Cambridge? Does it need international oarsmen to keep it relevant to broadcasters like the BBC? Is it of any concern that Oxford Brookes University seem to be able to be the fastest university or beat both Oxford and Cambridge in the warm-up races?
Not always. Not always. No.
Not always. Okay.
Not always.
Yeah, we did manage to beat them once, I think, last year. It was a dogfight, both pieces that we did with them. Look, I think Brookes has an incredible program, and and Henry and Richard and the rest of the coaches have done an incredible job there. But I think the standard of the crews at Oxford and Cambridge are still very high. And I think anybody who's benchmarking themselves against Brookes, it's a very, very high standard, to be quite honest. Now, they really I think have pushed the bar up. But they also have a different setup to Oxford and Cambridge as well. Admissions to the universities is incredibly competitive and is changing quite substantially, to be honest, at the moment. There's a lot of focus on the social demographic backgrounds of the undergraduate population. That's going to cause quite significant changes. And they're relatively, sort of small institutions too. And people are really only there for sort of 4 years. We're not an open club. It is simply a university club. And so, we have people for sort of times. And I think, you've seen the boat race programs. There's definitely a bit of, sort of that we always tend to have stronger years post Olympics, because there are often people are certainly away from the programs in Olympic year, but also you tend to see that people are attracted to the race because of its profile and come to the universities to be part of the race, as well as, pursue their academia. And that tends to happen after the boat. So, I think we're at a good standard. Obviously we'd love to be beating Brookes, but I think, most people would. And you've only got to look at other clubs. Leander has been the preeminent club for a long time, and Leander struggle to beat Brookes now too. So I think a lot of it is really Brookes pushing on and raising the bar, both on the women's side too. They've done a great job there.
Yeah, is that you're nodding in agreement, Siobhan?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I think the clubs, want to attract the students who want to combine, that the academics with the rowing, and so students are attracted from all over the world. That's a great thing, and all over the country here to come in at different levels. That could be undergraduate or graduate level, but also beyond that as well. The clubs have development squads, and we were saying a bit earlier that actually a really strong part of the programs is that it's built on a system where at Oxford and Cambridge the colleges teach a lot of people to learn to row. And so actually you're getting people who have, done other sports at school and are new to rowing. They find it at university. There's probably, around about 3,000 kids a year as undergraduates, not this year, obviously, who will learn to row. And then they'll make that step up from college rowing to making the choice to row for the university. And then with those students who are novice rowers, to speak, they're getting the opportunity to row and train alongside fellow students who have world or Olympic experience, and so their skill set and skill level is accelerated. So it's a really exciting and dynamic program to have that, that range there. And I think I was saying to you earlier, most of the Olympians from the women's side at Cambridge, they learnt to row at Cambridge as undergraduates. And I think we don't want to see that go. So we want that development pathway. And actually some of those, we are still seeing women and men leaving Oxford and Cambridge going into the national teams. And then it's great to be able to track people already achieving that height of success to be part of the programmes. And yeah, sure, we want to win a lot, but it's great to have fantastic competition out there, whether that's Brookes, UL, even IC sometimes, Seb, I think, and, around the world as well. So, yeah, I think we want to see ourselves being able to compete with everybody.
Yeah. It's interesting to listen to what you're saying, that the boat race or the standard of the cruise is still really high, and there is still the possibility of rowers to get into the GB team. So in that way, it's not like, say, maybe other university sports like the Oxford Cambridge rugby match, which has been in competition, with a very tough program, and become.
It is, but I think that's. Yeah, well, I think that's partly because rugby changed when it went professional. So that's a real challenge for the varsity match, the rugby varsity match, which is, fantastic day of rugby, but, competing against other programs which now have academies attached to universities or in towns, the leagues, it's a very different system. I think rowing is still part of, or rowing internationally, they're still part of a tertiary education system, isn't it? That's very well supported through many university programs actually around the country. So I think there is still that, it still hasn't sort of fallen into that pathway yet of that professional program and people leaving academia or education at 18 to follow sport full time. Yeah.
So, Seb, do you think the boat race, or I know in your year you had a couple of Canadian Olympians in your crew, didn't you? It was Jake Wetzel and
I think
still come to they still see the boat race as relevant to their careers, and they'll want to come and race.
Look, I think the thing that's unique about it, everybody who I know that has done it seems to have this very, very close affiliation with the clubs and the race. What I think, the standard, I do believe the standard is still very high. Felix Drinkle, won a gold in the under 23. These are really quality rowers. And the same is true on the women's side. Imogen is obviously doing extremely well within the British senior team from the Cambridge side. And but people do have, and it is a huge prize still to be part of the boat race. Now, whether it's, competing against Cambridge, the challenge of, normally the Tideway, this race that you compete, you train for 9 months to a year. I was listening to Scott Franson last night.
Yeah.
Even Scott talking about it, it's pretty unique to train for something for that long, to have never raced the opposition, and it to be win or lose, there to be no semi-finals, there to be no heats, nothing to take away from it if you come out second. And I think because of that, it's pretty unique, and people still seem to treasure it, and it's a big part of their lives and a big part of their own careers still. And you see that there's still a huge amount of interest. We have a lot of people who still want to be part of the race, and a lot of international athletes who, have had great academic sort of careers or times at other universities, and still want to come and do the boat race, as the next step in their rowing career too, whether it be the end of their career or a pathway to somewhere else. Some people are still using it as a pathway to get into the national team too. So I think it is relevant, and I think it's got a great future, and it's obviously got a huge history behind it too.
Yeah, yeah.